The economics of global trade. Will Trump's Liberation Day tariffs revive American manufacturing or repeat past mistakes? A bold new trade policy, a sweeping set of import taxes, and one powerful promise: we will bring American manufacturing back, bigger, stronger, and freer than ever before. That's the message behind Donald Trump's latest economic play, the Liberation Day Tariffs, a dramatic expansion of his nationalist trade agenda. If implemented, this policy would slap a blanket tariff on every foreign import. It's bold, disruptive, and potentially world-altering. But here's the question that cuts through the headlines. Will these tariffs actually revive American industry, or will they set off a chain reaction that weakens the very economy they claim to protect? This is Nexus-Feed, and today, we unpack the economic, political, and global consequences of Trump's tariff doctrine. Tariffs are nothing new. In fact, they were a cornerstone of American economic policy for over a century. In the 1800s, the U.S. used high tariffs to protect its emerging industries from European competition. The logic was simple: shield domestic producers so they can grow strong. And it worked, for a while. Industries like textiles, steel, and railroads thrived behind the tariff wall. But protection has its price. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act of 1930, intended to shield the U.S. during the Great Depression, triggered a global retaliatory spiral. International trade collapsed, and the Depression deepened. After World War II, America flipped the script. It championed free trade, helping create the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, GATT, and later, the World Trade Organization. The logic was that open trade would bind nations together, lower costs, and spur global growth. And for decades, it worked. So what changed? By the 1990s and 2000s, the global economy had become deeply intertwined. Factories moved overseas, supply chains spanned continents, and consumers in wealthy nations enjoyed cheaper goods than ever before. But underneath the prosperity, something was breaking. In cities across the American Midwest, once the beating heart of industry, factories shut down. Millions of blue-collar jobs vanished, and entire communities were hollowed out. Many economists pointed to automation, technology, and shifting demand. But to those on the ground, the culprit had a different name: free trade. And to many of those voters, Donald Trump was the first major politician to call it what they believed it was: a raw deal. So how do tariffs work exactly? A tariff is a tax on imported goods. When the government imposes one, it makes foreign products more expensive. That price hike has two effects. One, it discourages consumers from buying imports, and two, it makes domestic alternatives more competitive. In theory, this encourages companies to produce more locally. They hire more workers, open more factories, and spark a domestic revival. That's the theory. But reality is messier. In 2018, Trump launched a targeted trade war, mostly aimed at China. Tariffs were imposed on steel, aluminum, solar panels, washing machines, and later, hundreds of billions of dollars in Chinese goods. Did they work? The answer depends on whom you ask. Some American steel plants reopened, but downstream manufacturers, like automakers, faced higher input costs. Farmers lost export markets when China retaliated, and studies estimated that the trade war cost U.S. consumers tens of billions of dollars. More importantly, there was no large-scale reshoring of factories. Supply chains didn't rush back to Ohio. Instead, many companies shifted from China to other low-cost countries like Vietnam or Mexico. In short, the pain was real, but the gain was limited. So what makes the Liberation Day tariffs different? This time it's not just China. Trump proposes universal tariffs on all imports, starting at 10%, with higher rates for countries engaging in what he calls economic aggression. It's less a surgical policy and more a blunt economic weapon. And while it plays well politically, economically, it raises alarms. Experts warn that blanket tariffs risk pushing up prices across the board. On clothes, electronics, cars, food, and medicine, the average American household could pay hundreds to thousands more per year. And the global response, it could get ugly, fast. Why push such a sweeping policy now? For Trump, it's part economics, but part politics. Tariffs are visibly aggressive. They show action. They let him say, I'm fighting for you, I'm punishing them, and they speak directly to working-class voters who feel left behind by globalization. But here's the catch. While the political optics are clear, the economic benefits are murkier, and the risks, potentially massive. Let's break down the risks. First, inflation tariffs raise import costs. That gets passed to consumers. In an economy still recovering from inflation shocks, this is no small issue. Second, global retaliation. Other nations won't sit back. Allies may hit back with their own tariffs, targeting US exports. Agriculture, tech, and energy could all be in the crosshairs. Third, supply chain disruption. Modern manufacturing is global. Even American-made products often rely on foreign parts. Tariffs can jam the gears of these chains. Fourth, job losses in other sectors. Protecting one industry often hurts another. For example, steel tariffs may help steel producers but hurt car makers, construction firms, and appliance manufacturers. Fifth, reduced innovation. Tariffs can insulate industries from competition, reducing the pressure to innovate or become more efficient. In other words, the short-term gain may be dwarfed by long-term pain. Even if tariffs boost demand for domestic products, that doesn't automatically bring back jobs. Why? Because modern factories are highly automated. Robots don't care about tariffs, they don't strike, they don't relocate. And even when companies do reshore, they often create fewer, higher-skilled jobs, not the mass employment of decades past. True manufacturing revival requires more than trade barriers. It needs investment in STEM education, advanced training programs, cutting-edge infrastructure, and R&D and innovation ecosystems. Tariffs might buy time, but they don't build the future. There's also the international dimension. A sweeping US tariff plan risks pushing allies away and pushing rivals together. If Europe, Japan, and Canada are all hit with tariffs, they may align more closely with each other, or even with China. At the same time, large developing economies like India, Brazil, and South Africa could reposition themselves as champions of trade, filling the vacuum the US leaves behind. Global trade alliances are shifting, and aggressive tariffs could accelerate that fragmentation. The US risks losing influence, not just economically but diplomatically. So if not tariffs, what's the alternative? Policy, not protectionism. Invest in people. A skilled workforce is harder to outsource. Fund infrastructure, ports, broadband, energy grids. These are the bones of competitive industry. Support R&D. Emerging fields like AI, biotech, and clean energy could spark new industrial revolutions. Negotiate smarter trade deals. Instead of blanket tariffs, focus on fairer terms, enforceable rules, and strategic partnerships. Building the future means leaning into change, not walling it off. Trump's Liberation Day tariffs aren't just a policy, they're a mirror. They reflect America's deep unease with globalization, with inequality, with decline. But mirrors don't offer solutions. They show us what we are, not what we could be. Tariffs may feel like action, they may win votes, but they can't turn back time. And if we want a truly strong American economy, we'll need to look forward, not backward. This is Nexus-Feed. If you found this exploration insightful, give us a like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Is Trump's tariff push the spark of industrial rebirth, or a dangerous political mirage? We'll be watching. Stay curious.